Good morning, good afternoon, and happy Halloween to you. So something a little bit different. I'm going to do a black and white of a church, and this was taken a little while ago. But Akenham, the village of Akenham, and this is St Mary's Church. It lies just north of Ipswich in Suffolk in England, and it's supposedly the place where the devil was buried. And there's a little bit of folklore that goes with this and some legends, and I'll talk a little bit about this during the video. But it's over a mile from the nearest road or proper public footpath, so there's a little muddy track that takes you to this, and it's no longer a working church. It hasn't been for many hundreds of years. There's a lot of sort of intrigue and legend that goes here, and I'll take you through some of the things that happened in the past at this location. But what we will do is we will process the image. We'll get this image here and make it work in black and white. Feel free to drop down below in the comments. You'll find a link to the raw file for this, and you're welcome to download and follow on and join me having fun here on Halloween. Also, I'm going to use Silver Effects 8 from the Nik Collection from DxO. I do have separate videos on in-depth dive into using Silver Effects. Here I'm just going to use it to create the black and white, and I'll show you how that's done. And if you do feel that you'd like to have a play with Silver Effect yourself, there is a link down below for a free download. You can have a play with it on a trial period, so feel free to do that. And if you do choose to purchase it, use the link I've got down below, Jamie15, 15% discount, and I get a little bit off the back of that as well. DxO is a really good company. I've been working with them as affiliate for a little while, and I have to say I like their approach. They're really thinking about some new ideas for the future. If you like the video, click like, and if you do have any comments, questions or tips that you would like to add, feel free to put them down below. I'm always keen to have a chat with you. It's always good fun. If you haven't already subscribed, join me here on YouTube. Okay, let's get started. So first thing I'm going to do is open up the shadows so we can see all the grass here. Now it's quite messy, so we're going to have a bit of a tidy up in this shot, and we're also going to look at the crop to see if we can do something better here. So let's first off start to remove some of this grass. So I'm just going to go straight forward to the heal tool here. I'm going to select the little band-aid there, and I'm basically just going to make sure I've got plenty of feather. We can vary the size of the eraser here by using the square brackets to the left of the return key. It's going to make it a little bit bigger, and I'm just going to go around and just basically tidy up where the grass is, just using this heal tool, and just make sure we don't get any distractions. And it actually works quite well, and we can just keep going over until we're happy with the amount of removal that we've got. That's good. So same out here. Sometimes people do like a big section, try to do all of it in one go. It's best to do smaller groups, and if it doesn't give you a perfect finish, just go over it a couple of times, and you can see each time it improves just slightly on where we are. So I'm going to make the brush a little bit smaller because these are long, thin shoots here. So just going to go in and follow a couple of those down to here. I'll do those for now. Just remove those. There we go. One coming across here. And we've got a little bit on the front there of the stone, so we'll remove that as well. Just take away this bit of grass. So there's quite a little bit of tidying up to do here, just removing this, so you sort of get the idea of what we need to try to do, just to have a little bit of a tidy up. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to speed up the video just a little bit, and I'll complete the rest of this. Be back in a mo. Okay, there we go. So I'm happy with the tidy up there, just a little bit more there. We're going to run with this. So it's only a little bit of fun for Halloween. So it's quite a story really here with St Mary's Church. The church is the final resting place of Sir Edward Waldegrave, and he was one of the chief advisors to Queen Mary I. So we're going back a long way here, back into the 15th century. And the church itself played a major role in the history of English burial law. Strangely, it's only a little place. It was quite interesting because of a controversial incident regarding a 2-year-old child that had died, Joseph Ramsey, and he allegedly was denied a Christian burial by the reverend here at the church, which was obviously a difficult situation. He was notorious for preaching hellfire and damnation sermons, but Joseph's case sparked widespread debate, and it's quite interesting from this site here. His grave is in the north side of the graveyard here. It's a poignant symbol of a short life led to such big changes in English law. The Burial Reform Act was actually released in 1880, and that meant that effectively, regardless of whether you had a Christian denomination right or not, you were still allowed to be buried in sacred land. But that's where the whole story of the devil comes into play, and I'll take you into that story a little bit more as we go through. So now we've done the tidy up there, let's come out of there. I think what we need to do is probably do a sky replacement here, give it a bit of a nighttime theme. We can do that. So I'm just going to add a little bit of contrast to the scene. I'm just going to bring those shadows back a little bit for now, and what we're going to do is we're going to right click and we're going to send it over into edit in Photoshop 2026. So if you haven't got 2026 yet, you can go to the apps in your Creative Cloud and download it. I will be doing a video specifically on Photoshop 2026 shortly, so I'll take you through some of the changes that we've got. You can use 2025 for this, so it's no problem at all. So we're just going to go over into Photoshop where it's gone, and we're going to go straight into a sky replacement. So I'm going to jump straight in there. I've selected one of my night skies from my sky pack, so we'll have a bit of a starry night. Now this is a difficult one because we do have the trees here, and it will always struggle to try to find a way to make that work. So we can use the edge shift and pull that down a little bit to try to improve things just a little bit. Let's keep going down until we see that it's not too bad. But what you do is you lose all the little details if you go too far. So that's about as far as I could go with that. I can use refine tool, which is up here in the top left of the sky replacement there, and I can just sort of go into these areas and just click a few times and just improve down into these sort of gaps down here. Look, I can do that. Same over in the trees, but I'm going to crop this image, I think, make it more square, so I don't need to go too far over to the right on this shot. So a little bit more over here as well. Just get that in there. That works quite well. Just going to brighten the sky up a little bit because we will darken the whole scene down when we go back through, so that's okay. And I'm just going to check the direction here. I think let's try the flip here, this little check mark, and we can move the light to the right, which is where the light's coming from. The early morning sun was rising here, so let's do that. Let's flip it round the other way, and I think that works pretty good. Let's check the foreground lighting. So if I move that to left, we can make this brighter. If I move it to the right, we can make it darker. So I'm going to go to the right with that one. And the edge lighting, again, I can go to the left or the right. Doesn't make a huge difference in this case. Color adjustment will adjust the foreground to match the sky. So the more you go to the right, the more that you'll get sort of match between them. So I'll go a little way that way to get where we want. So I'm just going to select duplicate layer. I don't want new layers, just want a duplicate layer, single layer. I'm going to click OK. And now we've got that as our sky replacement. I don't want the lower level anymore. So I just clicked on it to highlight it, right clicked on it, and then I'll delete the layer. And I'll just say yes, and we'll get rid of that. So we've just got that single layer, and that's all we need to do for now, I think. Going to take it straight back into Lightroom. Going to go to File, Close, and Save. Back over into Lightroom, and there we have the sky replacement. So let's do the edit. Let's make this an interesting place, a spooky place to go along with the story. What we will do is we'll bring those shadows back and brighten this whole scene up just a little bit. We're going to bring down the highlights just a tad, and we're going to sort of relight the whole scene the way we want it. So I'm just going to keep it relatively dark for now, and then we'll have a look at that. So back to the story. They opened up the rights for non-Christians to be buried in the 1880 Burial Reform Act. People often say the devil is in the detail. Could these new laws have misadvertently opened the doors to Lucifer himself? And this was very much part of the legends from this region at the time. And according to those legends, the devil lies dormant beneath a split gravestone here in St Mary's Church, waiting in eerie silence. It's said that if you walk anti-clockwise around the church 13 times, it will wake him from his infernal slumber. And of course, people have come and tested that idea. and I'm not too sure how well that went when they did those things. So there was some accounts back from the early 19th century that said that some people had tried this and they'd circumnavigated the church 13 times. They all certainly felt a change in the atmosphere surrounding them, and the group noted that the energies became a lot darker. Not something perhaps I would much want to do, but there you go. As it's another chap I was reading in the article that said that when he'd been there and he'd circumnavigated the church, he could swear that the devil had jumped on his back while they were mucking about up there. It still wears a big cross to this day. That was what was written down. So yeah. St Mary's Church, no longer used for religious services for whatever reason, but it is still carefully maintained by the church's trust. So let's have a play with the image. Let's make it work. So I think first thing I'm going to do is go into masks here. I'm going to select a radial, and I'm going to want to create a sort of an effect on lighting up the darker areas, but also really bringing the church into play in the shot here. So just going to brighten that up. You can see I'm moving the exposure over to the right there. Add a little bit of contrast to that. It's lighting up the sky as well. Normally I would take the sky out of this, but in this case I quite like the fact that we're sort of brightening the church over there. I'm just going to throw a little bit of clarity into that radial filter as well. There we go. I'm going to take a copy of this, going to right click, and I'm going to go to duplicate the mask, and I'm going to bring that down here, and we're going to light up this gravestone here and just create a bit of light that works in this area here. So that's quite bright. I'm going to make it not quite so bright there, but just bring the highlights down just so it's not too much, and drop away the contrast just a little bit. That works very well. So let's bring that down. I'm going to copy it again. So right click, duplicate the mask. There's a little bit of light over here. So let's put a smaller radial over here, as though the light's sort of coming through the trees. But we need to not have that quite so bright. So we'll just bring that back a little bit there. And then I'm going to duplicate it one more time. So right click, duplicate the mask again, and we'll put it over this stone here, just to make that nice and bright as well. So sort of having a play with that. So just bring that up as well. So we've got sort of brightness there. So we've got lots of contrast in between here. What I do want to do is I want to make sure that the shadows for these stones are really there and really clear. So what we're going to do, just not quite so bright on that one, we're going to go to create a new mask. We're going to go to brush. We're going to go to about medium feather and quite high flow rate, and we're going to just do a negative exposure. Let's take a slightly bigger brush here, and then we're just going to make sure that we're getting that shadow coming away from these. Just if you want to take that away, because it's plus at the moment, which means it's taking away the exposure, because that's the setting we've got. You can always hold down the Option or Alt key just to work it back the other way if you don't want to go too far with that. So we can just put that in there as though we've got a shadow coming away from those stones. So hold down the Alt key just to make that work a little bit less. There you go. And you can see it's quite dark on there. So I'm just gonna build that up with a little bit as well, so we can see where we're at. Now we want to sort of break up the light here a little bit. So whilst I've got this brush, I'm just going to go in between here and just pick up. We're almost dodging and burning here. Just picking up. That's quite bright there. Just reduce that just a little bit around there. Leave it on the stone, and maybe make the brush a bit smaller still. Using the brush here just to build in a little bit of contrast in the shadows and the light over there. You can always use auto mask if you want to, and that will allow you to sort of work within the different color tones and darkness and brightness that you have, just to make it work. Holding down the Alt key to make a positive, I can just do that, but it will, where I've been over it, I can just remove it a little bit. Now let's take another brush, create another mask, take a brush. This time we're going to do a little bit positive on the exposure, and I'm just going to make it relatively big. We've got the auto mask switched on, and we're just going to brighten up a few little bits and pieces here and there, just to make it pop. So you've got a real dodge and burn effect there. You can see the brightness. Let's have a little bit in there. There we go. a little bit over here, a little bit on that piece of grass. And as you can see, if I hover over the mask, you can see where I've been. So that's the positive and that's the negative. So we've just created that little bit of contrast, a little bit bright over there. So let's go to the negative one and just bring that down just a little bit on the church. That's good. So this is the negative. So I'm just going to darken this side of the church a little bit as well, and maybe just bring down this just a little bit on this side here. So it's a little bit darker. Just going to go back to the light brush. Here we go. So I'm just picking up a little bit of light that's reaching the boundary there. That's good. Now we are going to take this black and white because the image will work well in the black and white. So before I do that, I just want to take another mask here, create a new mask, go to linear gradient, and what I'm going to do is just come in over the top here like so, and I want to just create some color contrast. Now I just said I'm going to black and white, but color contrast is important to black and white. It gives you the ability to really change the colors. So I'm just brought that in from the top left, you can see there, and I've added in a blue tint to the sky on this side. And I'm just going to darken it ever so slightly up in that top corner. There we go. And that gives you a nice color across the sky, which will give us a lot of contrast in the black and white to play with. So just going to come out the masks. I'm going to look at the crop here. I think I want to go with a 1:1 crop on this image. So I just went over here, made sure that the padlock was locked, and then go in and pick a standard ratio, and I just picked 1:1. And once you've got it there, we can move this left or right to make it work. So I'm going to put the tower right in the middle here, and we've got this stone is on the rule of thirds down here. So it's looking pretty good. I'm happy with that. I'm just going to hit return. I think we're somewhere good. So let's jump over into one of my favorite pieces of software, Silver Effects. You will actually find a link down below. If you want to try it for free yourself, there's a link. If you want to purchase it, just use my code Jamie15. You get 15% off, and you'll be able to have the software as well. That's for the whole Nik collection. I do use some of that Nik collection, but mostly it's Silver Effects. So let's right click, go to editing, go to Silver Effects. There we go. And I'm going to edit with these Lightroom adjustments. So I'm going to click on that. Now it's going to take me through. Now I could use Silver Effects in Photoshop. I've got another video. If you go back a couple of videos, you'll find one with a picture of a lion on it, and I take you through the detail of how you can use Silver Effects in Photoshop. And there we go. We're into Silver Effects. Quite a lot going on here. I'm not going to take you through everything that Silver Effects can do, but we're going to look at some of the presets and some of the filter changes. What you tend to find is if you look at the compare, you can actually just select different compares. You can have a full screen, you can have a half screen, or you can have a top to bottom screen, so you can compare your work as you go on. I quite like to use the slider when I'm going from one to the other, and you can see it's given us the black and white. But in this case, I'm just going to go full screen, and we're going to make the adjustments. In the All Nik category of the presets, I have made my own, but I'm just going to show you in the All Nik area. We can go down to presets here, open up the presets, and you can go down through. And it's a good place to start when you start looking at doing black and white. To do everything from scratch is great fun. It does take a little bit longer, and you also need to know the software quite well. But a good place to start is to use one of the presets. Now, I do like high structure smooth. That's often gives us a pretty good look. And also the high structure harsh can be quite useful as well. As I say, a good starting point. There's plenty in here. The full dynamic smooth also, I find, can be pretty good. So you can have a look at those. And the last one I do quite enjoy using is the fine art process. That is also a really quite interesting one. And in fact, I might go with that one here. Now, also underneath you have a filters menu here, and you can select here what will appear over on the right hand side. So in this case, we can add the color filter. We can add clear view, which is a nice little slider that we can use. And I do like to use toning, so I can add those in. You can also open up presets within each of those as well. Within the clear view, there are different settings. So you can, as I say, you can open these up. Toning is quite useful. You can go through and look at the different tonings. So it's quite well structured. And if you like to use presets, it's really good because you can pick a main preset, then you can have filtered presets and you can add them in. But what I'm going to do is going to go over onto the right hand side here. We're in the fine art process here, and then we can make our own adjustments to make it work here. And we can apply color filters to look at the image because we took it in color. So we can look at whether we go in the reds, which looks quite good, go in the orange, yellows, green, and blue. So I think green actually gives us really, and I think also red's quite good as well. So what are we going to go with? I think we're going to go with the green. And you can also vary the hue on that as well. So we can take the hue from the green and we can actually move it. So bear in mind we're dealing with the color image and we're reflecting it into the black and white. So by just moving that slider across, you can get some quite interesting effects right the way down to the blues and back into the magentas. Let's go. I think I'm going to go probably around about there. We've got this brightness on the stones, looks really good. Then we've got all the separate adjustments that we can make. And again, I'm not going to go through everything for you today. There is a separate video where I take you through all of this, but you can deal with the overall brightness, highlights, midtone, shadows, and a dynamic brightness. And you can look at the brightness adjustments in all of those separate areas. So if I want to do the highlights, I can bring the highlights down just a little bit. Works quite well. I can look at the midtones, perhaps just bring them down just a little bit, not too much. And then maybe open up the shadows just a tiny bit. Yeah, it's working well. Look at the contrast that we're starting to create in here. But what we do need to do is emphasize the blacks. Okay, that was the brightness. So if we go down, you can go down to contrast adjustments and we can work in amplifying the blacks, as you can see here, third one down, and I can bring that up and we can start to put a lot more blacks into the image to give it that really distinct look. The whites, we also have a slider on. We can open those up and bring those down. But as I say, in this shot, we're looking for that contrast. I'll perhaps put a little bit in there. We've got some soft contrast slider. Give you an idea. We go all the way to the left. We get, you know, that sort of brighter, lower contrast. So we go all the way to the right. We get crazy contrast. So we're just going to bring that contrast back. I'm going to find where these stones are looking pretty bright in there. But we need to work on this area back here as well. So let's consider opening up the shadows maybe just a little bit more, just a little bit. Maybe bring the midtones up just a little bit. Quite like that. Still a little bit dark in the center there. Going to bring that soft contrast up a little bit more. So what we can do now is we can take a local adjustment. We can select an elliptical control point and we can pop it in here. All right, so what we can do is radial filter. We can adjust its position, bring it through in there. I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller. And now we can affect the luminance, the chromiance, and the diffusion here. So we can move these around to just try to find different levels that work. Let's go with some more chromiance in there. And diffusion, and then let's bring up the intensity a little bit. There we go. That's starting to lighten that middle area up just a little bit more. That works quite well. And I'm going to bring this other one I made down here into this bottom corner here, and we're just going to make some adjustments down here. Same sort of thing. Just going to bring that up there. Yeah, that's working really well. It's got that sort of haunted look, hasn't it? Really good. So I'm probably just going to brighten the whole thing up just a little bit. Not too much. You don't have to go very far with these settings to get the look you want. Then I'm just going to pop down to clear view. Now this is quite an interesting slider. Sometimes it works really well. Sometimes it can be a little bit challenging. But if I bring that up, if I actually give it a lot, you'll see that you get this sort of really aggressive sort of contrast in the way it looks at the clarity within the image. So I'm probably going to go in there around about 15%. Happy with that. So going to come down to toning. Okay, and I think toning in black and white actually is one of the main sort of elements that brings an image in black and white alive. Everybody tends to just leave it in monochrome. and or go to sepia. But there are many different tones we can use. So if I select this here, you can see that it brings up a whole heap of different colors and selections, and some of them are very aggressive, like, you know, you're very much very colored. But what we can do is pick lower ones. Now, selenium is one of my favorites. This is a particular favorite of mine, and you can go more intense and come up to different levels, but you can also affect in each level. I'm going to go with number 4, and then we've got different sliders here to affect how much that toning impacts the image. So if I raise the strength there, we get that selenium, that bluey grey color. That's way too much. So I'm just going to bring that in probably around about there. And you can also move the slider on the balance, which affects the way the toning is actually delivered through the blacks and the whites. And I think that can work very well. So bringing that down, I'm going to actually go down here. And then, of course, you've got the paper toning, which is the overall effect of if you were using a photographic plate or film, you would effectively start off with different papers that you would actually expose onto. So you can change the color of the papers. You can do that. I'm not going to do that because I like this selenium look that we've got. Now I'm going to do the final adjustments on this back in Lightroom, but I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm just going to say apply down in the bottom right corner here, and it will process that image. It will render it for us, and it will pop it back into Lightroom. And that's looking pretty haunted. You know, that's looking pretty good. It was pretty eerie being there, I have to say, when we went there, and we got there before dawn. And wandering around in there was a little bit daunting. But let's just make some final adjustments here. I'm just going to perhaps open up the shadow just a little bit, brighten the whole scene again just a little bit. Let's bring the highlights down, and let's add a little bit more contrast into the scene. I think that works quite well. I probably went a bit far darkening this face of this church. So let's just brighten that up. So let's go to object selection in a mask. Let's go down here and let's take the face of the church tower there. There we go. And let's just bring that brightness up just a little bit. So just going to back off the textures on there because it is rather intense. So just going to drop that back just a little bit. And let's just check our blacks and our whites. We're going to hold down the Option or Alt key and move the white slider. You can see the stars in the sky there. So I'm just going to back that off a little bit. -32. And the blacks, just going to maybe add a little bit more black into the scene. So we've got that real distinct contrast there. A little bit more opening of the shadows. And I'm just going to put a post-crop vignette in on this here. So let's just go down to effects. Put a post-crop vignette in about -30. Remember to open the feather slider all the way up. I'm going to come back up to the top, and I'm just going to brighten it. Just going to put a little bit of tint in there with the temp. Not too much because I don't want to change the tone too much, but I just want to move it slightly warmer from the blue. We're done. So there we go. St Mary's Church, Akenham, just north of Ipswich in Suffolk in England. And if you dare to come, particularly on October 31st, it would be a time to go and visit. But that's Akenham Church in Suffolk. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, click like. Any comments that you might have or questions or tips, feel free to put those down below. I always enjoy reading those. And if you haven't already subscribed, please do so and join me here on YouTube. But for now, I'm going to say a haunted Halloween to you, and bye-bye for now.